June is National Indigenous History Month in Canada. To celebrate Indigenous culture and promote education, the Barrie Native Friendship Centre organized a variety of events. The centre supports the urban Indigenous community through outreach, education, and celebration. Artist and educator Lucia Laford visited the centre to share teachings on the Woodland-style art, a genre deeply rooted in Anishinaabe storytelling and visual expression. Laford learned Woodland-style art from her father, the late John Laford, who was a well-known woodland artist and educator. His influence remains centered to her work.
So I am visiting from Waawaaskone Kwe, Sault Ste. Marie. It's in Northern Ontario, and I'm visiting the Barrie Native Friendship Centre to talk about Woodland-style art with some of the participants here. And I shared all about Woodland-style art, florals. This was a lunch and learn, and then I'm also here in the evening to talk with a group of two-spirited youth, all about arts and connection to land and just us as Indigenous people. It would have started when I was a kid watching my dad paint all the time. I was really lucky to grow up watching him. Well, he was a professional artist and had been his whole life, and his work is all over the world. And I was really lucky to get to see that. And then, I don't know, I feel like I just started painting young and helped him out with stuff, and I really was naturally drawn to it. And then I was going to go in a completely different direction, and then kind of art pulled me back in, and now it's what I've been doing for the last, 8 years.
Josie Fiegehen, Culture Resource Coordinator at the Centre and organizer of the event, emphasized the importance of sharing Indigenous culture with both Indigenous and non-Indigenous residents.
So as the Cultural Resource Coordinator, it's my job to bring in knowledge keepers and elders and artists to the community to share with our urban Indigenous community here in Barrie. Yeah, that is definitely a big part of the job. Because we are urban Indigenous, we do service a lot of community who are Indigenous and not. So offering things like the lunch and learns here is a great way to bring people together, to learn together. And we also do, a lot of community outreach. Like we had our Red Dress Day on May 5th, where we were stationed down at Meridian Square there. So we were more out in the public. So people who were just walking by could come in and join in and learn.
The event received a strong response from the community. Participants, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous, shared and discussed their artwork at the end of the workshop. For Celeste, an Indigenous activist and psychotherapist who is reconnecting with her own heritage, workshops like this provide vital cultural connection for Indigenous people living in urban settings.
I've done a number of workshops through the Friendship Centre, but this is a somewhat new introduction to Indigenous artwork, particularly the woodland-style artwork. Is something that I'd never tried before and never really had a lot of information on, so it was really nice to get some of that culture and that history. Yeah. I think it's important to talk about, various aspects of Indigenous culture. I think it's sometimes, sort of easy to focus on certain aspects, particularly ones that we may be sort of more familiar with, such as, the history of colonization and what have you. Equally as important to discuss, but I think what sometimes gets overlooked is the joy of Indigenous culture and Indigenous history and Indigenous ways of knowing. So I think it's really important to focus on those aspects and to bring them to light so that people are more aware of, just the richness of Indigenous history and culture.
Food also holds a unique and important place in Indigenous history and culture. Steve Percy, a former chef with over 30 years of experience and now a volunteer at the Friendship Centre, spoke about the healing role of food in Indigenous traditions. He shared that his volunteer work is fulfilling and gives him the opportunity to meet wonderful people.
I help with their program to feed the community and help with people, less, more vulnerable people who are in need of help with food and nutrition. The most fulfilling for me is knowing that there's people who wouldn't normally get a nutritious meal, that we provide a nutritious meal for them. And unfortunately, it would be nice if a couple times a day they do it, but unfortunately, they're limited with what they can do. But at least we know that they're getting at least one good meal. and we're exposing them to good food as opposed to a lot of the foods that are available that aren't as the dollar store items such as chips and pop and stuff, which is not good for them, right? So because a lot of food we cook with nowadays, or especially myself, is a lot of natural healing foods.
Following is our coverage of the workshop and interviews.
Ani bojo, gagige gizika Kwe Indigenous magazine Dodan Batchwana and Donjuba. I'm Josie, and I'm the Cultural Resource Coordinator here at the Barrie Native Friendship Centre. So as the Cultural Resource Coordinator, it's my job to bring in knowledge keepers and elders and artists to the community to share with our urban Indigenous community here in Barrie. Yeah, that is definitely a big part of the job. Because we are urban Indigenous, we do service a lot of community who are Indigenous and not. So offering things like the lunch and learns here is a great way to bring people together, to learn together. And we also do, a lot of community outreach. Like we had our Red Dress Day on May 5th, where we were stationed down at Meridian Square there. So we were more out in the public. So people who were just walking by could come in and join in and learn. And we also have a community barbecue coming up on June 21st for National Indigenous Peoples Day, and also celebrating the solstice, which is really important to our community. So that's going to be out in Springwater Park. So people, will have to get out there. So it's not quite, it's more a little bit secluded in that celebration. It's not just at the waterfront where people will be walking by. And also another big one too is our Truth and Reconciliation Day, Orange Shirt Day, on September 30th. So that will be also down at the waterfront. So that'll be inviting a lot more of our community to come and learn together. So we have our ceremony grounds up at Springwater Park, where we have our teepee set up, we have our sweat lodge, and our pit for our sacred fire. So as a part of the solstice, it's important to honor our grounds that we have and that we care for the whole year. So including that land in that celebration, I feel is a really important part to that day. Especially we just raised our teepee there last month, so kind of feasting for that as well. And just bringing our community to gather and celebrate those lands is really important. Yeah, I think it's really important for the non-Indigenous folks in our community to understand and celebrate that Indigenous culture through supporting artists, through going to events led by Indigenous people this month, and to really celebrate that joy. A lot of the time we hear a lot of the trauma that our people have experienced, but I think this month it's really important that we celebrate all the work that's going on now. Especially over the summer, there's going to be a ton of powwows happening. Every weekend there's powwows. So just making the time to attend those and see that our community is thriving. We're more than our trauma, we're more than what has happened in the past. We're still here, we're still practicing our culture. And I think just getting out there and supporting that is really important this month for our non-Indigenous folks.
Ani bojo, my name is Lucia Laford, and I'm an Indigenous artist, arts educator, and Woodland-style painter. So I'm visiting from Waawaaskone Kwe, Sault Ste. Marie. It's in Northern Ontario, and I'm visiting the Barrie Native Friendship Centre to talk about Woodland-style art with some of the participants here. And I shared all about Woodland-style art, florals. This was a lunch and learn, and then I'm also here in the evening to talk with a group of two-spirited youth, all about arts and connection to land and just us as Indigenous people. It would have started when I was a kid watching my dad paint all the time. I was really lucky to grow up watching him. Well, he was a professional artist and had been his whole life, and his work is all over the world. And I was really lucky to get to see that. And then, I don't know, I feel I just started painting young and helped him out with stuff, and I really was naturally drawn to it. And then I was going to go in a completely different direction, and then kind of art pulled me back in, and now it's what I've been doing for the last, 8 years. So my dad was John Laford. He passed away in 2021, but he was a Woodland-style artist, and he was an incredible Woodland-style artist. And like I said, his artwork is all over the world, and he was also an educator as well. And so we taught together, we did murals together, we painted together, and he really taught me everything I know about Woodland-style art. Yeah, what I learned is from him and his teachings. So I went to school for something completely different, psychology. And so it ended up that I just ended up getting more opportunities and shows, and that's where my heart was. So I wanted to keep going with that, and he kept teaching me, and we kept getting opportunities together. And he obviously was winding down his career at the, closer to the end of his life, because painting takes a toll on the body, right? He was still painting all the time, but he was in his late 60s, so it's hard to keep up with that pace that he had his whole life. And so now it's my turn to have this pace of just busyness, being like talking and doing exhibitions and stuff like that. So first I had to, and he was really helpful with this, but he kept telling me to like mimic his style and like just keep drawing and drawing. And then eventually, I don't know, as time went on and I learned what he was doing, and I felt like it was in my blood, then eventually I would try something new, and then I just kept trying new things. And then a few years later, I just was able to recognize my style, and it's completely different from his, but it's all the same elements of what he taught me, but it's just filtered through my lens. And so it just kind of naturally happened. But first I had to really mimic what he was doing and have him guide me and teach me on how to do it. And then I could develop my own style. So no, his style is very characteristically, there is usually one central conglomeration of figures in it that are all connected, very, like the X-ray technique I had talked about earlier, where things are inside of things are inside of things. His style is they'll be all next to each other, and it's almost like you could outline the whole thing, and within that shape there's a whole bunch of different animals. And so my style is different because my figures are all smaller and are all apart from each other. So mine are connected through black lines and through color maybe, but his are more like actually connected, as in they're on top of and layered on top of each other. And so mine is almost like big long stories that you can tell, and his are stories as well, just they're bigger pieces in general.
So did he ever talk to you about his art, where it came from?
Yeah, he talked a lot about it with me, and how it's something that he was doing, and it was like, I don't know, it was like a gift and something that he was good at, and he could paint, so he just painted. And he was also sober for 45 years before he died, so it was another thing that he just knew was connected to us as Indigenous people and ceremony, and so he just kept doing it. And anytime someone would come to him and they were struggling with sobriety, he'd be like, well, pick up a paintbrush. And so he was a really good storyteller too, so it was another way for him to tell stories of who we are and be connected.
And then did he tell like where did he learn to draw?
So this school of art would have been being created into existence when he was just learning it at the beginning, or like, so he, depending on what textbook you read, but in my opinion, he was right at the beginning of when a lot of woodland art was happening in the 60s. And so there would have been other artists doing similar things, but as a movement, it all came together like around the American Indian movement and just stuff that was happening, pushback against residential school systems. But it was all kind of this events that happened. So I think it was a natural progression that around that he was in the beginning of it, and that he was learning his own style. And when I see paintings of his from like the 70s, I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, because his style has changed since then. But all of this is really coming from who we are as Indigenous people, so it's inherently in our blood anyways. And like, you just have to look at pictographs or petroglyphs or other iterations of our artwork to see how it's come to where it is now. That it's a beautiful form of art that is really so vital for an aspect of how we tell stories, and so important that Indigenous people, specifically Anishinaabe people, are telling our stories, and that this is one way that's in their blood to be able to tell stories, and that if they're good at it, or even if they're bad at it, it will naturally, or if they think they're bad at it, it can naturally come out of them, and it's a really beautiful way to live life. And you don't have to be a perfectionist or a professional artist to be a part of something, and so this is like a practice of woodland art and storytelling that is open to all Indigenous people. And of course, that also includes non-Indigenous people, that this is a very important art form that shows who we are as Anishinaabe. So therefore, non-Indigenous people need to, and settler colonial society needs to learn about woodland-style art. And this is one way they can learn about us as Indigenous people. Yeah, so there's the X-ray technique where things are inside of things, but all that it boils down to is that it's really important about the storytelling and the connection. But it doesn't matter whether the story is really simple, and just like I saw a blue jay today that I really enjoyed looking at, or like the big long story that has lots of layers. So everything is including these teachings that we know as Indigenous people, or that some people are just learning or reconnecting to. And so the characteristics that make it woodland style art is that it's about storytelling and connection, but that we're doing it through the X-ray technique, we're doing it through black lines, bold color, the color blocking technique. There's so many different techniques that make it woodland style, but what's most important is the connection. Well, I've worked across Ontario, but my career started in Toronto, and I'm very lucky to have started down there, and I've worked with, 7th-generation image creators, and I've done so many shows down there for different organizations. I work with Vibe Arts Now, which is an arts education facilitation company or business organization, I should say, sorry. I'm very lucky in my career that I get to work with many. I've worked with the Art Gallery of Algoma. Like I've done stuff, I've had a show, at the Ontario College for Art and Design. Like I've done stuff at Nuit Blanche before. There's a whole bunch of different things that I've done. But really, as an artist, you're very lucky you get to work with a whole bunch of different groups and people. And I have probably about 20 different murals around Ontario. And most of them are all community engaged, where I am talking with the community, seeing what stories they want to tell, and then involving the community on actually how to create the mural and then do it with them. Yeah, it is a settler responsibility to learn Indigenous ways of knowing, and so there's a million different avenues for that. And it's really hard, and it can be very overwhelming and uncomfortable as well. So, one tip would be to start with something that, if you're really interested in art, when you go to art galleries, inquire if there's Indigenous art and artists, or you can inquire about, is there events held by Indigenous artists? And that's where you go to these spaces to learn and to just be a participant in willing to have your voice be quieter, so that way you can understand the voices of others that are coming from this land. If you're really interested in education, you can go to educational institutions and take courses around Indigenous learning. So I would start with first your interest, and then, of course, hopefully that will build you up to be able to face some of the uncomfortable truths that you're going to have to face as a non-Indigenous person as you're learning all these things. It's really hard to start off with some of the hard facts first. And it's not all about the negative stuff that's happened. It's also all about understanding the beauty that we have as Indigenous people and are as Indigenous people, and all the beautiful things that we still do and have been doing, while also learning about the truths and the atrocities that have occurred. As a settler colonial person living in Canada, it's your responsibility to go seek out that knowledge, because generally there's a level of, and this word makes people uncomfortable, there's a level of privilege to know that you don't have to know about these things, versus Indigenous people have to live with it every day. So if you're a settler, colonial person living in Canada, it's now your responsibility to go, okay, well, let's go to the library and see if there's Indigenous books by Indigenous authors. And if there's not, why isn't there? And can I do something about that? Or can I go to my town hall and is there a section on the city's page about Indigenous education? Or if I go to the university and just look up their website, do they give me links? And if they don't, why not? And so you have to be like the type of person that can just keep going and going and going and finding stuff, because it is your responsibility to find it. Because Indigenous people already have so much burden on them that it's hard to then ask them to give you all the information. It's also partly them that have to find the information as well. I would say my advice for those celebrating Indigenous history, everybody should be celebrating Indigenous History Month, but for those that are actively wanting to celebrate it, is to find a powwow around you. There's powwow listings online, and powwows are generally, unless stated, but they're generally a celebration that's welcoming for all. And when you're going into these spaces, understanding that, you may not know anything about it, and that's okay. Powwows are a place of celebration anyways, and so just go with respect and go with the intention of wanting to learn and be a part of it in a respectful way. So there's powwows, and then there should be resources wherever you live about the events that are happening, and there should be events that are happening. And if there isn't, then that's when you can take the month to pick up a book by an Indigenous author and read it, and maybe you can learn from there. Learning in this way is difficult because there's no set way you can learn, and so any step that you take is hopefully a good step towards learning more about reconciling the
I mean, I've done a number of workshops through the Friendship Centre, but this is a somewhat new introduction to Indigenous artwork, particularly the woodland-style artwork. Is something that I'd never tried before and never really had a lot of information on. So it was really nice to get some of that culture and that history. Yeah, I think it's important to talk about various aspects of Indigenous culture. I think it's sometimes sort of easy to focus on certain aspects, particularly ones that we may be sort of more familiar with, such as the history of colonization and what have you. Equally as important to discuss, but I think what sometimes gets overlooked is the joy of Indigenous culture and Indigenous history and Indigenous ways of knowing. So I think it's really important to focus on those aspects and to bring them to light so that people are more aware of just the richness of Indigenous history and culture. I think what really sort of appealed to me in the way that she talked about this form of artwork was less about the technicality of it all and more about what it means to the artist and what story it tells. And she just made it so much more accessible in that way because it's not so much about the product, but about the process and about, what is really sort of coming to mind for the artist as they're going through that process rather than how it looks at the end. For someone like myself who is really just reconnecting with their own lineage, I think it's wonderful that the Barrie Native Friendship Centre is sort of bringing in all of these knowledge keepers to really disseminate a lot of this information for, especially for some of us who didn't grow up in the culture and who are in an urban setting. It can be more difficult, more challenging to connect with some of the aspects that you might get, say for instance on reserve. So I think it's really wonderful that the Barrie Native Friendship Centre really tries to incorporate a lot of that for us. Yeah, just to really know, a little bit more about the land that you're on and acknowledging the people who have stewarded these lands for, since time immemorial, and to really pay homage to that. So you can visit nativeland.ca to see where exactly you're located. So you can pay tribute to the communities that are within your geographical area. And then I think it's also important to, know aspects of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and to look at what Indigenous communities have asked for from the Government of Canada and just where exactly we are with all of that. I mean, I think it's really important to bring Indigenous voices to the table in all of those aspects. So if local organizations are wanting to pay tribute to that, it's just really important that they're getting that information and incorporating the participation of Indigenous people in those conversations.
I do volunteer work here at the Barrie Native Friendship Centre. I help with their program Feed the Community and help with people, less, more vulnerable people who are in need of help with food and nutrition. I'm a chef by trade. I've been cooking for over 30 years now. But unfortunately, the last 5-6 years, I've been working because of health issues, and so. But I do this on the side, and it's fulfilling as well as you meet the nice people here, and you can kind of do what you want as far as different kind of cooking and that, right? So because a lot of the foods here I haven't been exposed to myself, So it's a learning process for myself as well. The most fulfilling for me is knowing that there's people who wouldn't normally get a nutritious meal, that we provide a nutritious meal for them. And unfortunately, it would be nice if a couple times a day they do it, but unfortunately, they're limited to what they can do. But at least we know that they're getting at least one good meal. And, we're exposing them to good food as opposed to, a lot of the foods that are available that aren't as, dollar store items such as chips and pop and stuff, which is not good for them, right? So, because a lot of food we cook with nowadays, or especially myself, is a lot of natural healing foods. A lot of soups I make my own stock through the bones and stuff like that. That way you're drawing out the bone marrow, you're drawing out the nutrients for the bones. And then we just use it for soups or stews. Try to use as much fresh veggies and material as we can. Today we had, I used bib lettuce. We did a wrap as opposed to using a flour wrap, which is, there's people who have gluten allergies and any kind of wheats and stuff are harder to digest. So we used a bib lettuce, which adds, flavor as well as it adds moisture. Chicken, we had ranch dressing, bacon, and cheese. And it was just a healthy alternative. Then we also had blueberry bannock, which was nicely donated to us. So we ended up making a blueberry crisp with a blueberry compote warm sauce to go on top. We try to, when we're making stuff here in-house, we try to use less sugars and less salts. Because I know everyone likes their salts and likes their sugars, but unfortunately, down the road, those things aren't really good for your body. So we cut back on that a bit, but yet, we don't sacrifice the flavoring, right? And then we also had the watermelon salad. Again, that was, being a nice light snack. It doesn't fill you up, but, it gives you that extra, you have something in your tummy. It adds, moisture to your body as well as, flavoring. Indigenous culture, as far as food, it's a healing. There's a lot of healing properties that are in certain foods that are used, right? And of course, these are foods that are available based on your territory. Like, the Plains Indians used to a lot of meats and stuff, and a lot of flour in that because they had flat land to grow their flour. As in, the coast, the East Coast, West Coast, they have access 24/7 to an ocean of fresh fish and fresh seafood, right? So they live off of what they can, and they use a lot of healing herbs. I really enjoy doing what I'm doing here because I know it's helping people out, and hopefully this program will expand a bit more where we can reach a lot more people than what we have now.
Thanks for coming to the Lunch and Learn today. We have super cool artist Lucia Laford here. Yay! I met Lucia like a few years ago at ceremony, and she lives in the Sioux, and I'm from the Sioux. So that's how we met, and I'm kind of gonna pass it off to Lucia here to get us started.
Okay.
Yeah,
miigwech. So the schedule looks like, not that it's anything too strict, but I'm going to be talking about woodland art for the next little while. Also, my grandmother's here with me from Sault Ste. Marie. I was like, do you want to come with me to Barrie and just have a little weekend away? And so we're having, and my mom and my stepdad and my sister live down in Stouffville, which is not too far, so we're going to see them later too. Anyways, okay, so we're going to be talking about woodland art for, probably till about noon. We'll have lunch. I heard it sounds delicious, and the dessert sounds delicious too. And then we'll break for lunch, and then when we come back, we're going to be doing some drawing activities together. Or you could paint too. Whatever supplies are out, you can work on those. We'll be looking at, I have a bunch of floral drawings in here, and since it's June, Strawberry Moon, we can talk about drawing strawberries, we can talk about strawberry teachings, But this first little bit is all about woodland art, and so when I'm saying it's this word, woodland art, You guys have all seen woodland art. You're probably all very familiar with it in the sense that you've all seen it, but something in North America is that it's not talked about a lot of times. So most people across North America have seen woodland art. It's on our stamps, like it's on the sides of buildings. When you go to galleries, there's usually a piece of woodland art in, you know, a lot of our galleries. Just people don't know what it is, which is so interesting because it's the art of us Anishinaabe people. We're in Anishinaabe territory, you know, but hopefully more and more we learn about it. So I'm going to start with a smudge, and then yesterday I said I was going to sing a song and then I didn't. So now I got my drum out to remind myself to actually sing. And then I'd love to just go around the circle and just, if everybody could say their names when we get to there, and then we'll jump right into the presentation, which is not too formal. It's just some photos and some words to help you know about what I'm talking about. So for the smudge, I have my abalone shell. You can smudge in anything though, like little cast iron pots. These shells come from the West Coast. They're endangered right now, so I don't buy any more of these, but these are all gifts from, so I just cherish them and care for them now, and keep using them for me. And then I have my sage. This is white buffalo sage from the prairies. It's not from here, but when you do, you can pick medicines here, of course. There's sage that grows here, and when you do, you can put tobacco down for that. But the sage that grows here is different, and so it's not one that you can buy in stores. So if you go to the stores, this is the sage that you can buy, and it's, you know, there's different teachings about whether you can buy medicine or not, but if you need to smudge, and the only thing that you have available to you is to buy the medicine, you know, that's okay. You gotta do what you gotta do. So I'll bring the shell around, and for those that would like to smudge, you are more than welcome. When I hold the shell out to you, the teachings that I have for smudging is that it's an open practice. Everybody is welcome to smudge. You can say pass if you don't want to smudge. We're doing it to start things in a good way. We're going to be talking about really spiritual connection of ourselves and being Indigenous and what it means to connect through art. So that's why I like to start with things in a good way. And so when I'm smudging, I bring that smoke up to my head. I bring it up maybe to my eyes. So when I'm thinking about my head, I'm thinking about those good thoughts. I'm thinking about, for me, I'm thinking about grounding myself, and when I'm bringing it to my eyes, I'm thinking about seeing the good things in the day. I'm thinking about, when I bring it to my mouth, speaking the words, my truth, or as an educator, whatever it is that I have to get out that day. And then equally as important, if not more important, my ears. So that way I'm listening to whatever it is that the group of people that I'm with have to say. And I can bring it to my heart. You don't have to do all those things. You can sit, you can stand. It's totally up to you, however you want to smudge. But we will we'll start with that. I'll sing a song. This is my grandmother drum. Oh, it sounds really good. You know, sometimes this is elk skin, so obviously when there's humidity in the air, it dampens and it sounds more like that. But this sounds very good right now, which is exciting. So this grandmother drum was made by a friend in Waawaaskone, and it was my first drum that I'd ever gotten for myself. I had made one before, but I tied it too tight and then it started splitting. And when I was a teenager, I was like, oh no, that's because you're so bad at making things, and you know. But now I carry that drum and I love that drum that was starting to split, and now I know how to take care of them. So this grandmother drum, I bring it with me wherever I go. So I do a lot of education. I didn't even introduce myself properly, sorry. But my name is Lucia Laford, and I'm an Indigenous arts educator, a Woodland-style painter, and a muralist. And so when I'm doing anything educational, I always bring my drum, and this is my education bundle. So as Indigenous people, we can carry bundles with us. Really, anybody can carry a bundle, and it's what it is it contains all the things I might need, or the things I would want to share in an educational setting. So I have all the medicines in here. I have a ribbon skirt. I have my shakers. I have a whole bunch of things in there. And if someone was like, hey, I really need to make a tobacco tie, I'd be like, oh, I got you. You know, there's stuff in here for that. And so when I'm carrying my drum with me, it's to remind myself to help me share my voice. Also, singing as an Anishinaabe person is a way to share something and create that good space. Same with smudging. And so I'm going to share, I'll share the Mi'kmaq welcome song. So that song is just thanking and welcoming all the ancestors in, and again, ensuring that we have a good space in here to talk about all these things. So we're going to be talking about woodland-style art and a little bit about Indigenous ways of thinking about art in general and where it came from. So sang a song, we smudged. The next slide is just about, especially in spaces like this, it's just, there's a lot on there, you can read it if you want, but it's just to know that we're in a space where we can talk about things, and if you have any questions, please ask me. And there's no bad questions, there's no stupid questions. We're talking about stuff that there's a lot of misconceptions about, or maybe you have a deep calling for this type of art or anything, and you're just like, I don't know. And so I just want to be able to talk about these things and know that you can ask me questions, or even after, find me. Or if you come up with a question like months from now, ask Josie. Josie can email me, and you know, we can talk about it on the phone even. Because it took me a long time to get to this point to be able to talk about this stuff and comfortably. And sometimes it still makes people really uncomfortable because it's tied to residential schools. It's tied to our history as Indigenous people. It's tied to all these things. So, you know, and if you ever need a break, or you ever need to light a smudge again, you know, we can always relight that up. But that being said, I'm not specifically talking about anything we're just talking about the art today. However, it can be, you can bring things up. For the land acknowledgement, I prefer to just situate myself. So, Ani Bojo, I am Lucia Laford, and I am Indigenous and Irish, and my blood comes from Manitoulin Island and up in Sault Ste. Marie area, and Ireland. So I am a mix of two worlds, and so here is not where so this is Anishinaabe territory and Huron-Wendat, as I'm learning, but this is not really where my blood comes from, particularly where I have learned. And so when you situate yourself, I know that even though I'm Indigenous, I'm still a guest to this particular piece of land that we're on right now. And I as an artist and as an educator, it's my role and responsibility to say, like, when I'm here, I will be kind to this land, and the people that their blood does come from this land, I will always look to those people to know what best and how to best be a guest on this land. Everything that you're seeing too for the art is just art that I've made in different projects over the years. So, what is woodland style painting? It's a huge, huge, broad spectrum of things. And it's a pretty new term. So it's only from the 1960s that we really started calling things, well, I don't even know if it was us as Indigenous people that started calling it woodland-style art, or it was more Western society that labeled what people were doing in the 1960s. But beyond that, it is a way of looking at our spirituality, is a way of looking at our teachings. It's a way to connect to ourselves, to Mother Earth, to, all our teachings encompass all the nations. So what that is, that's all the nations across the world. That's also all the plant nation, the four-legged nation, the beings that live in the water, the beings that live in the sky, the rocks, everything out there that in Anishinaabe teachings really has a spirit. There's things that are inanimate, of course, maybe like a table or something, but most things in our way of life are animate, aka they have a spirit, and we have to take care of those things. And so in woodland-style art, it's all about that connection and the storytelling to that. We'll go. Oh yeah, Giken Damoen. It's like, I did that piece for a library, and so that is like knowledge or knowing, or the act of learning. And so in this painting, I had asked the people that worked at the library, okay, what do you want this painting to be about? Because woodland art, as we're gonna learn, is all about relationships and connection. So although I could have just painted a painting about a library, me as a woodland-style artist, my responsibility is, if someone's commissioning me or asking me to do a painting, which is the same as passing tobacco of creating a relationship, I have to then say, well, what do you want to see in your painting? What's important to you, other than just my interpretation of a library? So what they talked to me about was that place of learning. So this here is representing a lodge, and so our lodges would have been the place where we would have learned everything. And so there's also colonial contexts to libraries, right? So there's a lot of Western knowledge, aka knowledge that is not really about us, meant for us, or anything like that. Just recently, libraries are bringing in a lot of Indigenous authors. This is pretty awesome. But at the onset, libraries weren't really a place for Indigenous people to go and learn about themselves, right? So I was taking that piece of information plus what the library director was talking to me about, and we were thinking about how can we create a piece to show that libraries can be a beautiful space, but also have a varied history, especially in North America for Indigenous people. And so that's why we have people entering the lodge together. There's storytellers, there's pipe carriers that are smoking the pipe, that are sharing stories. This is a spirit. And so in Indigenous ways of knowing, things with horns, so when Western settlers came over here and saw our images with horns, they were thinking like, oh, that has to do with, devilish things. But really the horns that were represented here are more like a connection. It's like their connection is so strong spiritually to Creator. It's like, that's what that is representing. So when you see spirits painted on rocks that have horns, it's not like those were bad spirits. Those were actually the spirits that were the most connected to Creator. Anyway, so that's what that word is, knowledge. So woodland art. I'll talk about first my connection to woodland-style art. So a little bit about my story. So I'm almost 30. I just turned 29, and I've been a professional artist for, I don't know when the distinction happened, but probably about 4 years, I would say 4 or 5 years. But I've been an artist since I was like 20, aka I started having shows, getting new gigs, stuff like that. And when I started actually wanting to, well, I didn't know at that time that I wanted to do it. So for a time, I would have been considered an emerging artist. But for me, my father, John Laford, he was a woodland-style artist, and his art is all over the world. It's in North America, it's in Europe, it's even in Australia. He did things that were sent over there. So his art is all over the world. And why this is so cool is because he was born in the 1950s. And he was a dark-skinned Indigenous man. I am light and I can pass, but he was visibly Indigenous. And what that meant for him in the 1950s is that he was a part of the Indian Day School, the 60s Scoop, and so was all his family. And he has a very long and dark story that I didn't even realize until I was much older, especially when those, like when the settlements came out. And my dad didn't really know how to use computers. I mean, I barely know how to use computers. I take after him like that. But I had to help him fill out these forms, which were really like awful to fill out, and maybe some of us have experiences with that too. And so I started learning about my father in ways that I had never thought about before. And so one of the stories that he told me is that when he was 15, he ran away from the family that he was living with when he had been scooped away to Toronto. And so here's this very tall, dark-skinned Indigenous man that was in Toronto at 15, and he was going to do what a lot of them did, which was work in a factory. Just get a job and just put your head down, try not to get, killed or jailed or drugged too hard. I mean, at that point, he was an alcoholic because he told me that, and that the city, it was a tough place to be. But then at 15, he said someone asked him to make a painting. I'm like, oh yeah, someone just asked you to make a painting? And he's like, yeah. And then from that point forward, he just painted. And then he painted for the rest of his life. And he never did anything else except paint. Paint. And so when I was a kid, he would be painting all the time. Like we would pull up in his car, and then he'd pop the trunk, and there'd be a guitar there because he liked to play guitar. But he'd pop the trunk and there'd be a canvas with paints, and then he would just like paint in the back and then just paint a little bit, and then he'd put it back in the trunk. And so I grew up with him being a professional artist, but also seeing him struggle with poverty because his life was different than he was very successful, but it's different than the success that I'm achieving even as the next generation. So like it's amazing to see what he did with what little he had and how his artwork went around the world. And he had these massive exhibitions in New York and in California and in New Mexico. Like he did all these amazing things and the struggles that he went through to get there. And so, I mean, even when I was younger, I was a little resentful that he didn't teach me more about who we are as Indigenous people. And he was like, he was a pipe carrier, he went to ceremony, and I was always like, why didn't you teach me about these things? He spoke the language, why didn't you teach me about that? And it took him literally dying and at the funeral fire to be like, oh, I just forgive him for that, because at least he was in my life when I have siblings when he wasn't in their life, right? And so this is how I learned Woodland-style art, is I didn't realize, I was mad that he wasn't teaching me other things, but he was teaching me all of this. And I didn't even know it because we would paint together, we'd make murals together. Just before he passed away, we started teaching at the university in Sault Ste. Marie, Algoma University. And to get to teach with him was incredible. And so through years of just watching him and helping him, he taught me basically everything I know about Woodland-style art, which is a huge, huge gift. So that's my connection to it. And the reason it's really important to know where you're getting your information from is that, one, Woodland-style art is not super widely talked about. I mean, they're starting to talk about it in elementary schools even. There's like a unit that teachers can choose to do for their like elementary school classes. I don't know where that information came from. I haven't looked into it enough. But you never know, right? Especially in this age. So if someone ever asks you, oh, where did you learn the stuff that you're telling me about Woodland-style art? You can be like, I learned it from Lucia Laford. And I would totally be okay with you saying that, because everything I'm teaching you is where I know it, like I can trace it back. And the reason that's important is because I'm not making any of this stuff up. I mean, everybody has different teachings, but these are mine that I'm sharing openly with you. So that's how I learned to paint like this. So where did woodland come from in general? And so there's this name here, Norval Morisseau. You might be familiar or have heard that name before. It's probably the most famous name in Woodland-style art. It's kind of controversial right now. I'm not going to get into that. All that I care about is that his story helped really create why Woodland-style art, for good or for bad, is as predominant as it is. So when people think of Canada, aka, so-called Canada, they usually think of Inuit art, West Coast art, and woodland art. They might not know all the names, but you guys have probably all seen Inuit prints, printmaking. Those are pretty famous. Those are on lots of our stamps too. You've probably seen a totem pole and the really bold graphic, like the ravens in the West Coast art and stuff like that. And you've probably seen Woodland-style art. So those are the three big schools that Canada talks about for Woodland-style art without actually knowing anything about them. And this man, Norval Morisseau, in the 1960s, very similarly to my father, was a, is that the sound of the lights? That's hilarious. Was a dark-skinned Indigenous man in the 1950s and 60s. And when he started painting, basically Western society was like, whoa, what is this guy doing? And so they made him out to be a drunk and an addict and a man living on the streets with, you know, as a savage, but then also this amazing medicine man, artist. And they were like, how can he be both? You know, and so white society was really captured with this man of, oh my God, you know, how is he barely scrounging enough money to get a beer bottle, but he's also like this amazing artist. And so they started giving him shows. Of course, he was incredibly talented if you've seen the work of Norval Morisseau, and I think I'll show you that in a second. But so we can kind of, as awful as it is, but we can kind of credit the fascination of Western society with Norval Morisseau as to why Woodland-style art is even talked about as much as it is, even though it's not that much. And, you know, he went through a really tough life, as most Indigenous people go through. The other, beyond Norval Morisseau in the 1960s and 1970s, and all the other artists, there's female artists, there's trans artists, there's two-spirit artists, there's all different types of Woodland-style artists that have helped make it what it is. And they talk about schools of Woodland-style art. And now we're in like the 4th generation or 5th generation, something like that, or iteration of what Woodland-style art is. But beyond that, if we go beyond what it looks like right now, where did it actually come from? Well, it came from the pictographs. Okay, so these are pictographs, paintings on rocks. These are petroglyphs, carvings out of rocks. So these are from the Agua pictograph site. If you ever get the chance to see pictographs, it's pretty cool. It's beyond pretty cool, but I'm just like, sometimes you know when something is so amazing, it's like hard to even describe it. Well, that's what these are. This is paint that has stayed on the rocks for thousands of years. Like if we were in a room right now and we're like, okay guys, we have to paint something and it has to last 3,000 years, we wouldn't even know where to begin. But yet, Indigenous people across Turtle Island came up with this incredible way of telling stories, and it just lasts. And so we know that it's an oxide, it's an emulsion of like iron and stuff that can penetrate the rock. But still, if I didn't know that, then we'd have no idea like how to actually do this. So it's pretty incredible that these have lasted that long. Pictographs are also around the world. So there's different cave paintings. They call them, like in France, around the world. Ours are so special because they are telling the story of who we are. They're telling about the spirit. This is Mishmashu, or Mejo Bejo, Mishpashu, however you want to say it. This is the protector of the Great Lakes. And these are the serpents, and this is a canoe. And on this rock wall, like picture a rock wall the size of this wall, and it's taller, and there's water right here, and there's like a sign that says like, danger, don't fall in the water, like warning of death, because the water is so choppy right here. And so when you walk out on, and you can walk out onto them, you're like looking at them, and they're literally like right here. Like you can still touch them at this point, even though maybe you shouldn't, you should, whatever. But they're like right here. And there's a whole bunch of them, and they're just telling so many stories, and who was there, and what spirits were there. And so Woodland-style art is just this, but kind of in modern form with paints and canvas and bright colors. Same with the pictographs. Nope, sorry, petroglyphs. These are from Peterborough. These are really old too. These are carved out of rocks. If you go to this petroglyph site, there's hundreds and hundreds of them, just all on this rock face. It's very incredible.
No idea what it means.
Okay, yeah, great question. I know, I put it on here too. Time immemorial just means forever. Forever and ever and ever. Like, because the reason that word was birthed, words were birthed, was because, you know, scholars like to say like, oh, Indigenous people were around for thousands of years. They like to quantify, oh, we were here for 2,000 years, 3,000 years, 5. And Indigenous people kept going like, that's not long enough. We've been here longer. And so instead of just saying forever, which sounds kind of like, yeah, we've been here forever, it's no, we've been here since time immemorial, aka since the beginning. And so it's a way to go beyond people saying like, Like even the pictographs, every now and then scientists are like, well, they're 1,000 years old. Oh no, they're 2,000 years old. They you know what? They've just been there since time immemorial, right? There's no way they're going to figure that out now. So why not just say they've been here just as us have since time immemorial? So great question. Okay, this is kind of the what, why, and how of woodland-style art. So if you want to start making your own woodland-style art, you're more than welcome to. I mean, I'm not going to get into because we don't have that much time, but I'm not going to get into a huge discussion of like appropriation versus appreciation. But I'll say this: if you are Indigenous, woodland art is in your blood. In your blood in a way that it's kind of like your gift. If you feel drawn to it, then you can run with that and make it however you want. If you're non-Indigenous, you can still create woodland art in a way that you're appreciating it, but then your boundaries are different. You can't really sell it. You can't claim that you're a woodland artist, but you can learn about it. So, you know, if I wanted to learn like Chinese calligraphy, I am not Chinese, nor do I know anything about it, but if I attended classes about it, I can learn about it. So there's a big line between learning about this and trying it out, because trying it out is a really important way to learn about something, is trying it. But then there's the line of if you're non-Indigenous, you can't sell it, you can't be like, I'm a woodland-style artist, I claim this, you know, so there's differences. And that's for you guys, it's your own identity and what you're comfortable with. But even if you have, in my opinion, you know, one drop of Indigenous blood, it's in your blood. Your great-great-great-grandmother or grandfather loves you just as much. And so our ancestors are there. Of course, there's lived experience. I'm not going to get into all of that. But just know that you're in a safe place to talk about this. Or if you want to ask me questions on what is appropriate or whatever, you feel free to do so. So the what, why, and how of woodland art. Let's start with the what. So actually, sorry, let's start with the why. This is probably the most important thing. It's the storytelling connection and the idea of something. So just like in that painting over there, like bears, turtles, wolf, eagle, those animals don't actually look like that, right? But woodland style art is so important because it's the least important sense is your eyes, doesn't really matter. The most important aspect is your heart. And so your heart is going to be able to tell a story. Your heart is going to want to connect to something. And this is a really good aspect if you are like, I'm not an artist and I don't know how to create anything and everything I draw is ugly. And I hear this lots. As an educator, I hear like, I don't know how to draw a bear, so I'm not going to draw a bear. Well, great. Then woodland style art is a really great jumping off point for you, because now start with your heart. Think about the bear and the idea of what you want that bear to be doing. Is the bear eating blueberries? Is the bear just existing? And however you draw that bear is exactly the way that that bear is meant to be portrayed in your woodland style painting. And that's that. So because in connection, when we think about connection, probably the least important aspect of it is what we can see with our eyes. Everything is more about the feeling. And so when you're connected to a person, of course it's really nice to have them and to hold them. But that connection isn't lost if you're in a different city, right? But you can't see that. You can't see all the invisible lines that connect all of us to all the people that we love, to all the things that we love. And so that's what's most important in woodland style art. So the what? These are the things that you're going to see in woodland style art, and you can use one of them, all of them. It's totally up to you. There's ceremony that's depicted, and ceremony is anything from smudging or going to a shake tent or going to any which ceremony that you guys participate in. You can paint about that. Animals. These were our original teachers. And so in one creation story, all the animals lived here on Mother Earth, and Creator said to all the animals, like, there's going to be these people, these two-leggeds that come down, and they're going to be silly, and they're going to forget everything, and then they're going to really hurt the earth. And Creator was like, you guys are going to have to teach them how to do basically everything again. And so the animals have never forgotten. Like a fish never forgets to swim, an eagle never forgets to take care of its young. Like, they're out there living their original teachings. It's us that have forgotten, like everything. And so when we're painting animals, we're reminding ourselves of all the teachings that they bring. And so sometimes I get asked like, well, I don't know any bear teachings, or I don't know any butterfly teachings, so I don't really feel comfortable painting that. Well, it's okay if you don't know the teachings. You can still paint it because you're honoring that animal or that creature. And then maybe, you know, you're a person that really loves butterflies, but you have no butterfly teachings and you really want them. But if you keep painting them, maybe something will come to you, or maybe it'll open up and, you know, you'll meet someone that's like, I have a butterfly teaching, I can share that with you. And so when you're painting in woodland style art, you don't have to know everything. You can just paint to feel, and whether you have the teachings or maybe they'll come to you at some point, you know, it's all these things. So you don't have to know everything all the time to teach woodland style art or to learn woodland style art or to paint woodland style art. But for me, I have teachings, and so a lot of my paintings, I'm not all of them, but I'm lucky that I remember some teachings. And so those are the ones that I share a lot in my paintings, and that I share openly. And then what that means is that then people share their teachings with me, and then the ones that are meant for me to remember, I remember, and then I carry them to the next spot. And then it's like we're just constantly sharing all the time. So it's a really beautiful way to just keep teaching and sharing. So that's the animals. The next is people. People doesn't just mean us as alive, it means all our ancestor, it means all the generations in the future, it means all the spirits, it means creator, it means anything like that. Because in woodland style art or indigenous teachings, death doesn't really mean anything other than you're going back to the ancestors. So like your physical existence ends, but you're still existing spiritually in a really beautiful way. So for people, it's just you can depict them in any way. Next is symbols. Symbols are just anything that represents something else. So woodland art is just full of symbolism. Just like when you're painting a bear, maybe you're painting about Bear Clan. Maybe you're painting about the bear that fishes in the summer, those big fish. Or maybe you're painting about rest, because bears take a big long rest and they can be a symbol for that. So everything in woodland style art is a symbol. Next thing, nature. This is the same as animals. When you're painting nature, it's a reminder of all the medicines and all the teachings that come from nature. This is rocks, water, plants, everything that encompasses our natural world, aka Waawaaskone Kwe, aka Mother Earth. Lastly, sacred items. You'll see those all the time in woodland style art. And everything is really sacred, but it's like, maybe I can paint a drum, or maybe I can paint a feather, and those are also symbols. Maybe they're also a part of ceremony. So all these things go together to create the story that you're gonna paint. Okay, it's 11:59. I'm gonna talk for maybe a couple more minutes. Yeah, okay. So the how, there's no really wrong way to do this. So if you're painting woodland style art, it's different if you're doing it to connect versus if you're doing it to get exhibitions at a gallery. Because of course, when you're working within gallery systems, they're gonna want like art that's like professional, or art that looks like it was made by an artist, but that's a whole different thing. What I'm talking about is things that you might use to create your woodland style art to help you show that storytelling and connection. So one, the X-ray technique. That's when you can see inside of things. Like that bear over there, that bear on that door has a circle in the middle of it, and it has the 4 medicine wheel colors in it. That's the X-ray technique. So the X-ray technique is anything that you can see inside of something. So like I'm standing up here, but if you were to paint me in woodland style art, I am Bear Clan, and my name is Bringer of Light Woman, and I really like eating fish. Maybe you could paint all those things inside of me, and instead of having them around me. And so the X-ray technique is a really great way, and it really helps people too, because maybe people are like, well, I don't know, I can't paint fur, it's too hard to paint fur. Well, great, fur doesn't matter in woodland style art. That's not the thing that we're concerned about. It's the inside, and that could mean the bones, that could mean the organs, but that can also mean like, you know, I had someone paint the other day, like they love their cat so much. So they painted a picture of them, and instead of them holding their cat was inside of them. Not because they ate it, but just because it was showing the connection that they have with their cat. And so I was like, this is very cool. That's all the X-ray technique, because that's what X-rays do. They see inside. And that brings us to remember the idea of something. This is very important. Next is bold black lines. So remember when I was talking about people and we're all connected but you can't see it? Well, that's what the black lines are. So those are the physical, visual representation of all the connections that we have. So if you were to paint a woodland style painting of us right now, maybe, you know, you would be represented in your favorite color with your clan, or something, another symbol that is representative of you, and maybe there'd be a little black line connecting each of us, right? So that's why those bold black lines are so important around everything, because they're the visual representation of connection. The next one, 2D designs. So this is really important in the fact that, like, people in traditional artistic mediums get really caught up in like perspective and proportions and shading. Like, none of those things matter in woodland style art at all. And ideally you like forget about them completely, because instead of painting a picture that is like, okay, there's mountains in the background, that's the background. Then the midground is some trees, and then the foreground is people in a cabin and stuff like that. And we can know that that's what reality looks like. Well, if you were to paint that in woodland style, you're not wanting to paint reality. You're wanting to paint the connection and the story. So what's the most important thing about that mountain scene? Well, maybe the people are, you know, doing something. And so the mountain could be represented in any certain way. And so woodland style art is outside of like this plane of existence in reality. It's more about some imagined plane of reality where it's all the same in one, and the bear is the same size. The fish can be bigger than the bear, and it doesn't matter, right? That's the beauty of woodland style art. Lastly, color blocking. What's really cool about that, all that means is that each thing is its own color, and I'll just show you an example of what I mean by that. It's like, these are blocks of color. So there's, you can blend in woodland style art, of course, that's cool too, but in a lot of woodland style art you'll see blocks of color, and then they're separated by black lines. Just like this fish, you know, its body is different than these colors, and each color is separated. Yeah, and it's also to remind us that things are separate but also the same. Yeah, those are the great, okay, so this painting was for World Water Day for an organization in Sault Ste. Marie, and they commissioned me to do a painting of the importance of water in Sault Ste. Marie. And so this is the turtle, and it has Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario, and the strawberry is where Sault Ste. Marie is, because it's the heart of Turtle Island. The reason that this area is the heart of Turtle Island is because when you think of, actually I'll go forward too. Okay. When you think of North America, this is a cool little infographic, except it doesn't have the Great Lakes on it. But it's called Turtle Island because it kind of looks like a turtle. And so in this turtle, the Great Lakes would be right here, okay? What would that be? Well, that would be the heart. So just like us, right? That's our heart. And so it's pretty cool too, because the watershed of the Great Lakes is a watershed is just basically all the water that interacts with those lake systems, aka all the rivers, all the little lakes that are fed by those big waters that are right here. The watershed of the Great Lakes is huge. And so it's kind of like, if you think of water as the blood of Mother Earth, it's out feeding things, just like our heart is pumping blood. And so that's what the Great Lakes are. And then lastly, many colors. Okay, people mistake woodland style art sometimes is that it's like a rainbow of colors. And yeah, you can use all bright, yeah, you can totally take a picture. That it's all bright colors all the time. But woodland style art can also be black and white. It can be a whole bunch of browns. It can be any colors you want. And they just mean different things. So maybe if you did a painting in black and white, it would be really talking about like the spiritual connection of a specific story. Or maybe it's a wintertime story when sometimes you look outside and all it looks like is black and white. So even though woodland style art is associated with like really bright, bold, like yellows, oranges, pinks, blues, all that kind of stuff, it can also be, you know, browns, grays. It can be anything that you really want it to be, as long as you're using, you know, some color. Like that one right over there, that black and white. It's so, you know, it's colorful in a different way. Like the black and white are really visually stunning. So, with that being said, without getting into the other stuff, I think that's good. And yeah, we can have lunch now.
Okay, cool.
If you have any questions, just let me know. You can talk to me throughout lunch, obviously. Miigwech.
Sorry, was all the art in the presentation yours?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you do digital art or painting?
No, only painting. I can't do any digital art.
That looks so like pristine. That's really cool.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. It took me a long time to get really crisp black lines.
It's like a tattoo.
Yeah, it is like a tattoo. Actually, that's how I do like all my drawings is like I'll draw them out in like a good copy. So this was a mural that I had done, and so obviously there's a rough copy sketch of this, but this is like the good copy sketch of it, so that way I can just take it to a wall. But it is like a tattoo basically. It's oh sure, yeah. It's just line work, yeah.
More like schematics.
It is totally like a schematic, because the size of the mural for the wall is exactly this size, and it's the same ratio. So all I had to do was just draw exactly this on that wall. So when I'm saying floral, it's this word right here, floral, not flower. So florals, there's Ojibwe woodland florals, and so what that basically is it's a part of woodland-style art, a part of the nature category. And what florals are is they represent that connection we have to the medicines. And so where you're going to see florals, you're going to see actually, where do people see florals? You know, you've all seen them before, but can anybody name like where you've seen florals before? Flower shop. Pardon? Oh, the flower shop, yeah. Definitely see flowers there, but where might you see floral designs? Beadwork? Yeah, beadwork. Yeah, exactly. Collages, if people have done that, that's very cool. You can have, say it again? Oh yeah, that's a great one. And I don't know how it's close enough. Fabrics, yeah. And so we can see it on clothes, we can see it on a whole bunch of things. So floral designs are all a part of the fabric of the indigenous. And so if we think about florals before beadwork and stuff like that, instead of just making them for artistic reasons, we would have just had them on our clothing. We would have had them on our houses. We would have had them, or our teepees, or our lodges, or our everything, right? So florals are a really important way to connect with nature. And I'm just going to show you like a couple. This is an example over here of like, this is a really simple floral design, and it's one that I used to teach about because this is fall native florals, and so all these flowers grow in this area and are come out only in the fall. So there's like asters and peach drops and coneflowers and Indian tobacco, goldenrod. There's a whole bunch of beautiful flowers in there. And so what makes it a floral is that if you were to draw a still life of a vase of flowers, like a vase and then some flowers coming out, some leaves, stuff like that. This is not a floral. A floral is more when they connect to each other like this. And so there is no beginning or no end, it's just they're all like connected up. And so that's how you get some really cool designs and patterns with them. And so, we're going to erase. Oh yeah, sure. I'm going to erase this now. And so when we're thinking about florals, and you don't have to draw florals today, but I'm going to be talking about strawberry florals. When you're thinking about florals, you can think about symmetry versus asymmetry. I don't know why I'm having trouble with the spelling there, but I don't know if there's two S's there. Whatever. Asymmetry. Whoops. That's just a moment of tiredness there. Okay, symmetry or asymmetry. So what this means is symmetry is if this is my page right here and the symmetry of axis is this here, whatever I do on this side, I'm doing to the other side. So if there's a line here, there's a line here. If there's a little squiggle here, I'm trying to mimic it, there's a little squiggle there. And they can connect, you know. That's symmetry, so these two sides are symmetrical, they're the same. Asymmetry is when there's just things all over the place. You know, nothing is the same. Okay, so for everybody that's new that just walked in, Ani bonjour. My name is Lucia Laford, and I'm an Indigenous arts educator and a woodland-style painter and a muralist. And so today we were talking about florals. We talked the first half this morning before lunch all about woodland-style art, and so that's what this page is up here. This is all, if you have questions, you can totally ask me that during or throughout. But this is kind of all about woodland-style art, and the thing that we're focusing on for our little drawing session now is kind of the nature aspect of woodland-style art, which is all about florals. That being said, when you have sketch paper in front of you and markers and all these things, you can draw whatever you want right now, and you can just listen to me talk, or you can use this time to doodle, or if you have already designs in your head that you want to go for, you can just start drawing. So, but what I was talking about with the florals is that they're a way to honor all the natural medicines that we have around us in nature. And so everything when you go on a medicine walk can be a medicine. So if you're walking and someone says, well, that plant is poisonous, it's not a medicine. Well, it's medicine in a non-ingestible way, but it's teaching us another aspect, another teaching. And so all things like that can be medicines in that way, just some are not ingestible. Remember that, like some mushrooms, don't eat them when you're foraging, right? And so we're going to be talking about strawberries, but we're also going to be talking about floral designs in general. And so this was just a really simple floral design that I did to teach with and to show the steps to create your own floral design with. And so the first thing that we were talking about today is symmetry versus asymmetry. Symmetry is when along your axis, which is just like a line that you imaginarily draw, the things on one side look the same on the other side, versus asymmetry is just all over the place. When you're drawing florals, you can do whatever you want. Asymmetry, symmetry. For me, symmetry really makes my brain happy. This is obviously symmetrical. If there was a line right here, if I folded this, this side would match exactly this side. Some people hate symmetry and love asymmetry and just love drawing everything, drawing all over the place and not having this specific type of balance. And that's pretty cool too. So you have to figure out in your designs what works for you. Of course, in florals, we talked about that they can be beadwork patterns or they can be painted. And so if you were designing a floral for the top of a moccasin, like this is my moccasin, this isn't a floral, but it's like a potentially beaded pattern. This is a bunch of triangles. But your floral is going to look different on a little vamp versus if someone was like, hey, can you bead me a floral on the back of like a jacket or something, right? Like that. That's a huge floral design that you could do. So for you guys, you have a page in front of you. And so when you're drawing your florals, think about your page, and this is what we call just composition. It's a really long word, and all it really means is that if your page is this big, you're going to figure out the placement of where you want to put things. So if today you're like, I really love tulips and I really love bears and I want to make a floral, because your floral can also have insects, animals, it can have sun, moon, stars. Your floral can have whatever you want in it. It's totally up to you. But you're going to think about the things that you want. It can be helpful for some people to write down, like, I want tulips and a bear and a moon. So it's now like these are like your ingredient list. I'll write that, ingredients. And now this composition is where you're going to place these ingredients on the page. So how that might look is that in one floral design, and this is what artists do all the time and why it's good to have a sketchbook around with you, is because in one design, maybe my tulips are right in the middle, and maybe I have like a bear curled up and it's like sleeping inside the tulip, and oh, then there's a moon outside watching it. This is one way of composing my ingredients. But another way might be like maybe the bear is really, really big, and this is that bear like resting. And maybe the bear has a whole bunch of tulips inside of it, you know, who knows what you want to do. And then maybe the moon is right here, you know. So your design can be whatever you want it to be, but sometimes when you're an artist, it's really helpful. I know some people don't like sketching, and if you already see it in your head, just draw it. But for those of us that have lots of things going on and like you're like, I don't know which to do, it's really helpful to draw them out and to see what it looks like. So it depends the type of artist that you are, that you wanna do. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna talk about, so we have composition, symmetry and asymmetry. Actually, there's enough room right here. Is now what your flowers are going to look like. What flowers? And so there's a few different ways. One, you can just make up flowers. So one flower that you might see a lot in woodland style art is this one that looks like this, and then it has that, and then sometimes it has little things like this. People bead this flower a lot. They put little designs in it. Maybe they put like leaves coming down from it. So you can make up flowers, and the cool thing about making up flowers is that they can be the craziest looking flowers ever, and that can be really fun. Another way to think about florals is to honor specific plants that you see out in nature. And so that might look like, I have a couple examples here. That might look like seeing an aster, which are very common, and they come out all seasons really. Seeing an aster, they're not this big in real life. Asters are kind of small. Well, a lot of variations are pretty small. And for me, this page is really just showing how flowers are just shapes. And so if you draw any shapes, you can turn them into flowers. So this aster is really just a circle, and then I start dividing it up, and then I start making petals out of those divisions. This one is called a lady's tress, and really a lady's tress is just a triangle and a circle together, and I start adding other things to it. And like the goldenrod, those are the one that grow at the side of highways all the time in the fall, and there's lots of them. And the thing about florals is that if you look at a goldenrod, it doesn't just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It doesn't just have 10 branches. Goldenrods have so many little tiny parts on them sticking out. But the trick to making florals is, instead of drawing every single thing you see in reality of that flower, is to kind of take a look at them. And remember, going back to the idea of something, it's not important that you draw every single petal exactly the way it looks like. It's more important that you tell a story, or you connect to that flower in however it looks like in your head. So we're gonna, now that we've talked about florals a little bit, I'm just gonna show you, I'll have to erase this, how you might design a floral. So one way you might do that is, I like to call it like the bones or the skeleton of a floral, but these are all just variations of, I don't even have the plants in there yet. It's literally just ways of connecting things. So in this one right here, they're all connected by that black line. Remember we talked about the importance of the black lines in woodland style art? Well, they're all connected by the black line, but I haven't drawn the actual flower, and these are just placeholders to where they're actually gonna go. And so you can start that way, and that might look like on your page, you know, drawing a bunch of shapes in asymmetry or symmetry, whatever you like, and knowing, okay, there's a big flower gonna go here, some small ones here. Maybe I have some hanging flowers here. Maybe I have, you know, little tiny flowers here. And then you can start connecting them up, however that looks like to you. So that's a very asymmetrical design. And then you can add some leaves in, whatever it looks like to you. I mean, the great things with floral is that you can do whatever you want. And then once you start going, you can add in some petals. Maybe you have some big petals. Maybe you have some like long, skinny petals like this. And so that's one way. The other way is maybe you draw a bunch of lines first. Maybe you can see a bunch of lines connecting up in a certain way. And then once you draw kind of the black lines in, then you start going, okay, well, I can see some little flowers here and some little leaves here. And you start adding things in. And maybe as you get more complicated, you start adding in all the petals and the little things that are going to make them look more realistic, like a flower or a floral. Now, the thing about sketching is that however you choose to do it, it will be helpful to you if, in this one, for example, it's just kind of the lines, the bones of the floral, and then some shapes. And then the next one, I start adding some petals, so it starts to look more like a floral. And then, once I know where all my flowers are going to go, you can take a black marker or a black pencil crayon and you can outline everything. And how this happens is that once you outline everything, you can take an eraser and you can erase all the pencil marks and you're left with a really clean black and white image that now you can just color in like a coloring book. So that's one way to create a really finished floral design. So that's kind of like a really crash course in florals, and you can start exploring that on your pages if you want. But the way we're going to talk about it today is, what time is it? 1:28, is that I'm just going to give you a few ideas about strawberries and how you can make a strawberry floral. Sweet. Sharpies. Let's go. Those are very helpful. So if you're drawing your floral already, that's awesome. Maybe you can add in some bees or some flowers or some butterflies, but you can also add in some strawberries. And why you might want to add some strawberries in is because this is June equals strawberry moon, also known as, or the original name I suppose would be Odaemon geezus. So what this word is, this is strawberry. This is two parts to it. This first part here is heart. The second part here is berry. And that is referring directly to the strawberry. And that's because when you draw a strawberry, or when you look at a strawberry, they kind of look like a heart. And, oops, sorry. There's many teachings with the heart berry. And so when you're drawing your floral, think about adding in this beautiful berry. And the way you might want to do that is, strawberries, they're shaped like a heart, so you could draw it more like a heart like this. You can draw, really big round strawberries like this. There's no wrong or right way to draw the tops of a strawberry. Sometimes they have big leaves coming down. Sometimes they have leaves coming up. But the thing about the strawberry too is that you always want to make sure to add the seeds on the outside. And so I'm just going to talk about some strawberry teachings, and you feel free to keep drawing and doodle if you want. So why is it called the heartberry? 1, it looks like a heart, and 2, the seeds on the outside remind us that, like our hearts, we have to be vulnerable and show courage, because many fruits grow their seeds on the inside. They protect those seeds of vulnerability. But the strawberry is the opposite. The strawberry grows its seeds on the outside to remind us, okay, there's a lot of courage and strength in being vulnerable. And so the strawberry is also one of the first berries that comes up in the spring. I forgot the word, sorry. In the spring. And so Mother Earth has had a blanket of snow covering it all winter. It's resting, just like we rest in the winter too. And as that snow melts, spring comes, the thunderbirds with that green thunder green lightning create that spring, that new life for us. The water unfreezes and that goes out and gives life to everything around us. Well, this berry starts creeping around. You can see it on the ground, and it has these beautiful little white flowers that have 5 petals. They look something like that. And they have leaves that look like, they're kind of like spiky leaves. They're not actually spiky, they just look like they have. And they come in leaves of 3. So this is like the opposite of like leaves of 3, let it be. You might have heard that for poison ivy, not poison ivy. Yeah, poison ivy. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, poison ivy. Leaves of 3, let it be. But in this case, these leaves of 3 are pointing us towards the strawberry. I don't know if strawberries are blooming down here yet. Yeah, they are. Oh, that's great. In the Sioux, we just have the flower right now, and so when you see these, first of all, when you eat a strawberry, you can eat the top, the greens of it. Actually, a lot of things are edible on the strawberry plant and have a lot of beautiful medicines in them. And so you'll see the strawberry vine, you know, growing and the leaves of 3 coming off, and then you'll see all these little beautiful flowers that have the 5-petaled flowers. So why this is significant is that it's like Mother Earth. I'll get to your question in 1 second. Mother Earth is so forgiving and kind and wanting to share her beauty and all the goodness with us, that as this berry comes up, you know, it's the first berry, and it's like Mother Earth reminding us that, yeah, after a harsh winter, like we can still have this beautiful heart and share it, and I can nourish you after a long, hard, cold winter. Yep.
Yeah, I saw a video or something. I was watching it. It was on Facebook. With the strawberry, people are just cutting the tops right off and discarding them.
Yeah.
And then what this person's doing is putting them in a jug, and then they boil water and whatever. They let the tops soak in the flavors that are in the top.
Yeah, I mean the top, if you've ever had a strawberry, the top of it is actually kind of good, I think. It's just like a nice leafy green, and there's a lot of antioxidants and vitamins, if you want to talk about it that way. But also spiritually, you're eating the whole fruit, and it's delicious, and it's like a gift that Mother Earth is sharing with you, so why not eat it? So in your florals, you can start to think about, you know, I talked about asymmetry or symmetry or how you want to draw, but there's 3 kind of ingredients in the strawberry. There's the strawberry, there's the flower, and there's the leaves. And so you can use any combination of those to draw on your page these florals. And so you can also add, think about little tiny strawberries versus, you know, big strawberries. You can add the seeds on the outside in different patterns. I'm going to draw a couple more ways you can draw strawberry tops. So there's a classic one. You know, you can have these big leaves coming down like this. There's no real wrong way to do it. And I know this might look a little complicated, but the leaf, it really just looks like you can draw a strawberry, a reverse strawberry, and then you add in the spiky little leaves, and they're really cool. They have these nice veins coming out of them. So that's how you might be able to draw a strawberry leaf. The other way you could draw a strawberry flower is you can draw a circle, just like I was saying before, you can draw the shapes of the florals. You can draw a circle with another circle inside of it, and then you can divide it up to the best of your ability into 5, and then boom, there's your petals, just like that. That's one way you could draw that. And then, you know, the cool thing about florals and woodland-style art is that, remember, we're not concerned about reality, so you can put all different size strawberry flowers. You can put big strawberries, little strawberries. You guys also don't just have red on your table. You have, you know, purples and blues and pinks and yellows. Your strawberries could be all different colors. They could be rainbow strawberries. They could be black strawberries. They could be whatever you want to talk about in this way. Same with the strawberry flowers. You could also, maybe if you're really interested in growth, you could think about the strawberry cycle. And so what that is that the flower turns into, maybe I'll draw it. I'll draw it right here. So we start out with like a little bud that can grow into a little strawberry flower that can then grow into like a little strawberry to, you know, a big strawberry, and then the seeds reseed themselves. And so this is one way you could think about that strawberry cycle. Yeah, strawberries are so beautiful. Oh, the other thing about why is it called strawberry moon? Well, it's the strawberries are growing in this moon. And so we'll relate that back to, we know our months as, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, all those months. But for Indigenous people, our months reflect what's actually happening in the season. And so for you down here, we're pretty close in Sault Ste. Marie, really. But say you were far away, like really far away in like the Lenape Nation, or you were a Cree from way, way out in the prairies, it might not be strawberry moon out there because the strawberries might not be growing out there, or they might not even have strawberries. And so the naming of the moons reflects whatever is happening in nature at the time for that specific nation or region. And so for us here, it's strawberry moon, but all across North America, Turtle Island, there'll be different names for different times. And so each moon consists of 28 days. And if you do the math, that equals out to 13 moons in a year, which is how many moons that we have. And so our new year starts in December with the winter solstice, December 21st, the longest night of the year. It is a way for us to know, okay, this, from every day after this, it's going to be sunnier and sunnier for a whole, until the summer solstice, and then it'll start going down again. But that's the shortest day of the year. So many Indigenous people think of that as the new year's beginning. And then from there, it carries on out to the next December. And so from every moon from there, each moon has a different name that, like I said, reflects what's going on in that month. And that's how we measure time. And so it's a different way to think about time, rather than there's 24 hours in a day and, there's 60 seconds in a minute, all these things that we think about. One way that Indigenous people measure time is exactly what's happening in the season. So we know it's strawberry season right now, and this is a specific time. We know the next time there's, soon there's going to be blueberries growing in the later summer months. There's going to be different, and so you can measure time through what's happening around you versus the seconds that pass by. So, what time is it? 1:39. Okay, we have about 20 minutes. So I'm just going to give you time to work on your drawings, and I'll come walk around, and if you have questions or you want to chat with me, please do so. But I'll just give you a reminder again, there's no wrong or right way to draw what you're drawing right now. If I was to give you a map, I would say, sketch something out. Take another page and sketch it out maybe in a good copy, outline it with that Sharpie that you have, erase everything, and then you can color it in. That's a fun way to go through an activity. And it's okay if you see the pencil marks, if your eraser's not that good. It's okay to see pencil marks. Another tip would be, try to take up the whole page on your space. No, said it backwards. Try to take up the whole space on your page. And why this is helpful is because if your page, is this big, okay, and you're like, I'm going to draw strawberries, and you end up drawing little strawberries like this, you have a whole blank page. Versus you can make them a lot bigger, and it'll look like a cool design if you take up a big aspect of the page. Okay, we'll come walk around. I'm just gonna light the smudge again because I know there was people that came in after, and you don't have to smudge, but I'm just gonna bring it around again. If anybody would like to smudge again, you can just flag me down and I'll come over to you. And so just as a reminder, when we're smudging, it's just there's many teachings about it, but in this moment it can just be about clearing away whatever negative or grounding yourself as well. And it just smells really good, and you can just take that moment for yourself. Or if drawing is something that stresses you out, as it does for some people, because people get really caught up in, oh, it doesn't look good, I don't like it, it's not coming out the way that I want it to. The smudge can help you go, oh yeah, I'm just drawing to have fun. That's all that matters right now. So you're just trying to relax and have fun. Oh, those are beautiful, the earrings that you're wearing.
Thank you, I made them.
You made those?
Yes.
What? Wow. Beautiful. Yeah. So I had a great question about smudging as a non-Indigenous person and what that looks like. So smudging from our teachings here in this area generally are that smudging is an open practice meant for everybody. And how we can connect that is that we're all people living on this land. Some of us, our blood comes from this land, and some of us it doesn't. But that doesn't mean that it's not your home. And so if I move somewhere else in the world, I know my blood doesn't come from there, but it's my home, and I'm going to talk to the people that it is their ancestral blood comes from there. And if they're wanting, well, first of all, I'm going to want to connect with wherever I live in the world. And second of all, if they're inviting me into something, then it means that it's a relationship. And so if a non-Indigenous person is like, okay, like if you might think about some movies where they like buy some sage and they're just like, we're saging away the bad spirits, you know, that they're doing it maybe without intention or understanding where it's coming from. But if you have heard an Indigenous person speak about it and it's something that resonates with you, then you can absolutely smudge because it's a practice that is rooted in connection and love and kindness and clearing away, you know, whatever needs to be cleared away for you. So I talk about smudging as open for everybody. However, there's people in all places in Turtle Island that might say, oh, in this instance, you know, we don't smudge with non-Indigenous people or stuff like that. But for me here, I smudge with everybody. But yeah.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to smudge?
How do I, like, is it just kind of like allowing the smoke to go?
Yeah.
Like that?
So once it's lit, the smoke's going up to Creator. So it's like carrying your prayers or whatever it is. And you can take your hands and you can bring it to your head or to your eyes, to your mouth, to your heart. And it's just basically like, yep, good thoughts, seeing the good things, speaking good things, hearing good things, or letting in the good stuff for you. Or letting the bad stuff go away. There's no wrong way to do it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Awesome. I love all the notes that you took.
It helps me kind of focus when I got like some guidelines and that.
This is me 100% too. I will just write everything down so it's like I don't have to think about it. It's there.
Yeah, and I have like my little doodles and everything going at the same time. It's a good time for me.
Right? Yeah, me too.
I'm glad to have met someone who notes in the same way I do.
Right, okay, I'll show you even, like. Like this is for like murals and stuff, but I'll just like write down everything. Like I'm just like, okay, so that way, this was the brainstorm for this mural. So it's like all of these things are in there, you know.
An artist I really like, he does that kind of, he makes full sketchbooks.
Oh yeah.
Like his ideas, but also like a bunch of like pages of just inspiration and notes and everything.
Yeah.
And he compiles these beautiful sketchbooks that just show his whole process.
Yeah.
And that inspired me a lot to like do this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I find it so helpful. It's just like,
it's like, oh, there's a creative idea, and then there's the words, and then
yep.
It all comes together.
It all comes together. Yeah, fully.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. This is beautiful. There. I love it. Is it a moon?
Yeah, I'm thinking new moon.
Nice. Yeah.
That's when a lot of my healing comes.
Mm-hmm.
And then a fast. Yeah.
That's awesome. Got a dream catcher and a bear.
That's a cat.
Oh, cat. I can't tell from this side. Sorry.
Cat bear.
Dream catcher and a cat. That's awesome. This is really cool. That really well. Got some artists over here. Just working on there. Wow.
We were just
so
saying
delicate.
The way you like explained how to do it and the way you laid it out makes so much sense. Like I've always been
good.
so intimidated, like even with like planning out beadwork. So like the way you broke it down, so helpful.
Oh, thanks. Good. I'm glad. Like it was just like so delicate, and it was just like, boom,
I know,
strawberries.
that's what I was saying. I was like, It's so cool how everyone does it
Differently. I know. Literally, like I'm just talking about strawberries, and everybody's done it so completely different.
That's so cool.
Like I
which is
love seeing that.
amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Whoa, that came together quick too. I like the symmetry here.
Described how to draw the flowers.
Oh yeah.
Circle and then that, and then the drawing of the strawberry with the heart. Anyway, it was really nice.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Wow, this is beautiful too. Jeez, I like the pattern of that. It's very cool.
I divided it so that I only really had to think about what to draw in one corner.
Yes, and then you just right. I do that all the time for florals. Yeah, and then it makes a cool pattern.
It's just like, oh, what am I going to draw next?
Yeah.
Same thing 3 times.
Yeah, that's how people make like fabrics too. Is then this would just go here and here and here, and then
That thing where you like fold all the corners in and
Yeah.
then it makes a repeating pattern.
yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Is it turtle strawberry or just turtle?
Because I was looking at this,
Yeah,
and
turtle.
the turtle shape is actually.
I know
A
it's
strawberry.
totally a strawberry. Yeah,
That's the first time, really looking at that.
yeah. You really like? Is this yours too?
Huh?
Is this yours too?
Yeah.
Turtles.
Yeah.
Turtle. Yeah.
Like an infinite.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's awesome.
Looks great. You
Would the parents or family around?
Not that I see.
already got the colors.
Careful. Don't ever try that again. Maybe go to a zoo. You'll get a better chance.
It's very cute.
They probably still won't let you pet them at the zoo either.
Are you making a big pattern? Or
Yeah, I'm going with the symmetrical thing.
yeah,
On that.
I know. I like symmetry.
Yeah. It's not
That's
going to
awesome.
be accurately symmetrical, but
But no, it doesn't have to be.
So when you were saying the X-ray thing,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe the sun's got some X-ray thing.
Yeah, for sure. Why not? Grandfather's son with the X-ray.
I was just like, okay, I'm gonna start drawing flowers.
Yep, that's how it goes. Are you gonna add more flowers in there too?
I don't know, but maybe some grass at least to start.
Yeah, some grass, a good idea too. I like your straw. All the seeds, very nice.
Thank you.
Very cool. Who's here?
That's Sam.
Sam.
Bathroom.
Okay, cool. That looks cool. And Josie, I'm not even gonna talk about yours. It's so beautiful. What the heck?
I had a good teacher.
Whatever. You should just bead that right there.
Yeah,
Wow.
I should.
It looks really good.
Thanks.
I would get earrings.
I really actually do want. I made blueberry earrings before with one blueberry, but I do want to do a little cluster with the
Yeah.
little stems.
It's so beautiful.
Thank you. My gosh.
Where's your drawing, Grandma? No pencils.
Pencils?
There's look at that.
So many
Pencils
pencils.
right here. This is beautiful. I like the bear up here. Steve the bear. That's awesome. I like the symmetry too. Wow, everybody's drawn.
Cute. He just danced up. I love it.